Tonight we are looking at 3 horrifying caving stories that went horribly wrong. Each story starts with confidence and ends in chaos. As always, viewer discretion is advised. On May 9th, 2026, Etienne Mercier dropped into the GOUFFRE BERGER, the first cave to break 1,000 meters of depth, a limestone drain under the Vercors plateau that cavers once called the easiest deep cave in the world. The name has a second half. In rain, it becomes flood, a river standing on end. He was leading a team of 4, down to the canals at 500 meters, a day of photography in the long lakes, and out before the weather window closed. Etienne was 44 years old, a vineyard manager from Grenoble who had logged 600 trips in 25 years underground, the one his club trusted to read the Berger's moods. His habit was the sky. He phoned the plateau weather station before every descent and wrote the forecast on his forearm in marker. Because down there, he told his wife, the sky is the one thing you cannot check. The forearm said 36 dry hours. The plan used 20. What he didn't know, the forecast was about to be wrong by half a day. Here is what you need to understand about the Berger. The plateau above it is bare karst, and every drop of rain that lands on it is in the cave within hours, gathering into the same passages a party must use to get home. The canals are the throat of it, long lakes under a low roof where the water has nowhere to spread. Because they hold the whole cave's drainage, a hard storm can lift them to the ceiling in 2 hours. The descent ran like a postcard, boots wading the green lakes, camera flashes cracking off the walls, rope hissing on the entrance pitches far behind them, 4 lamps gliding down water so clear the floor seemed lit from below. They shot the long lakes through the morning and turned for home on schedule. What they didn't know, the storm had come in early over the plateau, and the cave had already begun collecting it. In the 3rd canal, that is when the cave failed him, because the current they waded against had doubled without a sound, and a rift in the floor took his right boot and closed on it like a drawer. The water climbed from his waist to his ribs while the others were still turning around. What he knew, braced against the push of the rising canal, a jammed boot comes free with slack, and slack needs the current to ease. And that habit, the forecast inked on his forearm, was underwater and wrong. Panic moved faster than the rising water. The current kept climbing. His leg was pinned. He was trapped. The roof hung 1 meter above the lake. Because this is the arithmetic of the canals, the water was rising half a meter an hour. His mouth stood a hand under the roof. The team had perhaps 90 minutes of fight left before the flood took the last of the airspace, and the decision along with it. 4 cavers worked in a flooding tunnel. 1 boot held the whole night hostage, and the storm above them had only started to drain. Watch a team spend everything right. First, 2 of them braced him against the current, making a wall of their bodies, buying his mouth its air while the 3rd dived on the boot. Second, knife to the laces, hands working blind in the brown push of the water, the boot sacrificed to the rift a strip of leather at a time. Put yourself in that canal for 1 minute of it. Water at your chin that was at your waist an hour ago. A friend's hands somewhere below, pulling at your ankle. And the roof of the cave 1 handspan above your face, telling you exactly how much hour is left. The foot came free at the 3rd cut, and the current took all 5 of them 20 meters down the canal before the wall of bodies found rock again. They swam and waded the last 2 canals with the roof closing to a whisper, and hauled out onto the dry ramp above the lakes as the water sealed the passage behind them. Etienne did not stand up. The cold of the canal had spent him to the bone, and somewhere in the last 100 meters, his breathing had gone shallow and stopped answering. Etienne Mercier died of cold water hypothermia on the dry ramp above the canals, 20 minutes after his team freed him, with 3 friends working on his chest in turns, and 500 meters of flooding cave between them and the surface. The team sheltered a day and a night on the ramp before the water gave the canals back. The recovery took 2 days more. The inquiry ruled the death a forecast failure met by a faultless rescue, and the club's report changed the rule that mattered. No canal trip on any forecast under 48 dry hours, and a fixed rope now runs the length of the third canal, anchored above the rift that held him. The first 1,000-meter cave on Earth still drains its bare plateau through the canals, still clear and green in fair weather, still a river standing on end in storm. Teams still come every summer, and the report's last line rides in every tackle bag. "The sky is the one thing you cannot check down there," Etienne used to tell his wife. "Check it twice then, and give the Berger its 48 hours. On March 12, 2026, Hannah Price led 6 clients down the ropes into Doong, a cave so vast that clouds form inside it, and a jungle grows where its roof has fallen in. 5 kilometers of passage a skyscraper could stand up in. It is crossed on foot and rope in days. Help is measured the same way. Her plan was the standard crossing. 3 days through the great passages and the 2 jungle dolines, camp to camp, out over the far wall. Hannah was 38 years old, a guide from Cardiff who had logged 400 expeditions in 15 years, who spent every summer in Vietnam, the one the outfit gave its hardest clients to. Her habit was the rehearsal. At every camp she made the team practice the casualty drill once, litter and all, because the day you need it, she told her brother, is not the day to learn it. The crossing was going perfectly. 2 camps down, 1 to go. What she didn't know, the trip's real test was waiting in the boulder field past the second doline. Here is what you need to understand about Doong. Its size does not make it gentle. The floor is a country of house-sized breakdown blocks, greased by the fog of the cave's own weather. And because the only 2 exits are days apart, a casualty cannot be handed to anyone. Whatever happens, the team that is there is the rescue. The third morning ran bright, lamps grinding across the boulder country, the far doline pouring a column of jungle light into the dark, swifts clicking somewhere in the roof, mist rolling slow over the team like surf, and the clients trading photographs at every rest stop of a cave none of them could fit into a frame. They broke camp under the second doline on schedule, boots laced, litter poles strapped to the biggest pack the way the drill demanded. What they didn't know, the night's fog had been raining on the boulder field for 8 hours, and every block in it now wore a film of grease, a floor already primed to fail, because wet breakdown holds a boot only until it doesn't. An hour past the doline, that is when the floor failed them. Because a slab the size of a van shed its wet skin under the strongest client in the team, and the sound his ankle made reached Hannah 3 blocks away. The man came to rest wedged between 2 blocks, boot pointing the wrong way. What she knew, climbing to him. The entrance rope stood 2 days behind them, the far wall 1 day ahead, and a carried man moves at a fifth of walking pace. And that habit, the casualty drill at every camp, was about to stop being a rehearsal. Panic wanted all 7 of the team. The ankle was wrecked. The exits were days off. Their radio was stone dead. 7 faces turned to Hannah in the lamplight. Because this is the arithmetic of the biggest passage on Earth. The far wall stood 18 hours of carrying away. The litter team could work 20 minutes a shift. And the next scheduled contact with the outside world sat 2 days out, on a trail schedule that assumed 7 walking clients and no litter at all. 1 broken client lay in the boulder country. 6 others became a rescue team. And the cave's own weather kept greasing the road home. Watch 100 rehearsals pay out at once. First, the splint, the litter built from the poles and the camp tarps, the casualty packaged warm, 12 minutes flat, exactly as drilled. Second, the relay. 4 carrying, 2 scouting the line ahead, rotating on her whistle, 1 block at a time across a floor that had already dropped one of them. Put yourself under that litter for 1 minute of it. A man's weight on your shoulder and wet rock under your boots. The far wall a pinprick of gray that never seems to grow. And a whistle every 20 minutes, trading your ache to the next pair of hands. They carried through the cave's own rain and out of it, 18 hours becoming 22 where the blocks ran worst. At the far wall, the team hauled the litter up the ropes, one pitch at a time, the one place a carry can still fail. Hannah climbing beside it with her hand on the man's chest. They came over the rim into the jungle heat at noon on the fourth day, too spent for panic, and the porters ran the last kilometers to the village with the stretcher swaying like a boat. All 7 crossed out alive, and the outfit's report ruled the injury a wet rock fall met by a textbook self-rescue. Crossings now carry a satellite messenger in each camp barrel. The casualty drill became a booking condition, and the boulder field past the second Doong is now roped as a fixed line in fog. Doong still grows its jungle under the fallen roof, still brews its own clouds, still measures help in days on foot. Hannah still runs the drill at every camp, 400 expeditions on, and the client walked into her briefing tent a year later on 2 good ankles. The day you need it is not the day to learn it, she tells her brother. 22 hours of carrying set it for her. On June 6, 2026, Alvaro Peña unlocked a steel door at the back of Valporquero, the show cave of León, and stepped into galleries the public never sees, sealed behind a locked gate. The mountains above run cold, and their caves shed rockfall all summer. Above him, tourists walked lit walkways. Below him, the wild cave went on for kilometers. He was surveying with one partner, through the gate, down the breakdown slope to the river level, 6 hours of instrument work, and back out the same door. Alvaro was 45 years old, a mining engineer from León who had logged 500 trips in 20 years underground, the one the cave's guardians trusted with the key. His habit was the check-in. Every 2 hours, on the minute, he rang the guide station through the cave's old service phone line, because a man behind a locked door, he told his daughter, should make sure somebody is counting. The morning ran to plan. First call made at 10. What he didn't know, the freeze of the past winter had left the ceiling above the breakdown slope holding its breath. Here is what you need to understand about Valporquero. It is 2 caves wearing one name. The show cave is tamed. Paths, lamps, handrails, a guide every hour. The wild galleries behind the gate are the mountain untouched, where winter ice works the ceilings all season and lets go of what it loosened all summer. And you will never hear the warning. Because the 2 share one hillside, tourists stroll daily 30 meters above passages no rescue team has ever needed to enter. The survey ran sweetly, instruments clicking on their tripod, water murmuring down on the river level, the gate locked behind them the way the permit demanded. 2 lamps working down the breakdown slope under a ceiling of frost-cracked gray. Nothing failed on the way down, because the mountain saves its releases for the afternoon. At noon, he made the second call, right on the minute. What he didn't know, hanging up the old handset, it was the last call the line would ever carry. 20 minutes later, that is when the ceiling failed, because a winter's worth of frost-loosened rock chose that hour to leave the roof of the breakdown slope, and the rockfall took the slope, the phone line, and the way back to the gate with it. The dust rolled down to the river level like a gray tide. What he knew, listening to the mountain resettle, the 2 o'clock call would not be made, and the guide station would know it to the minute. And that habit, a man making sure somebody is counting, had just become the only rescue plan that mattered. Panic rolled in with the dust. The slope was gone. The line was dead. They were trapped below the fall. The gate might as well have been on the moon. Because this is the arithmetic of a sealed gallery. The missed call would land at 2 o'clock, 40 minutes away. A rescue team needs 6 hours to reach the gate with gear. And the river level where they stood ran 8 degrees, stealing 1 degree of core heat every hour a man sits still on wet stone. 2 surveyors stood under a fresh rockfall. 1 phone line lay cut inside it. and the only people who knew the wild cave were the two men locked in it. Watch an engineer treat a catastrophe like a site inspection. First, away from the fall, insulation out, the stove hissing alight. The cold, not the rock, was the killer on the clock. Second, the survey itself, their own instrument notes, walked backward, because a slope that has just failed has a shape, and somewhere in that new shape there might be a way over it. Put yourself at that river level for 1 minute of it. A ceiling that has already spoken once, a stove flame between you and 8-degree stone, and your wristwatch crawling toward 2 o'clock when a phone in a bright room upstairs would ring nowhere. The 2 o'clock silence did its work. By 3, the guides had cleared the show cave. By 6, the mountain rescue caving section stood at the gate with the Guardian's second key. They met in the middle, the rescuers working down the fall from above, Alvaro guiding them by voice through the gaps his survey eye had found, until a hand came through the boulders and took his. The two surveyors came up the tourist path at 9 that night, past the empty walkways and the silent lamps, into a car park full of headlights. Both men survived on a stove, a schedule, and a survey book, and the inquiry ruled it a frost-release rockfall in an ungated ceiling. The wild galleries now open only after each spring's ceiling inspection. The old phone line is replaced by radio through the show cave's repeater, and the 2-hour call schedule is written into every permit. Valporquero still runs its 2 caves under one hillside, lit paths above, sealed dark below, tourists strolling daily over the mountain's unfinished business. Alvaro still rings the guide station every 2 hours from behind the gate, 500 trips on, and the inquiry report hangs framed in the guide room by the key cabinet. Somebody should be counting, he tells his daughter. Somebody was. It brought the mountain rescue to a locked door with the second key, 6 hours after a phone failed to ring.